And think about it this way. People are absolutely terrified of having Trump for another 4 years. They think the country will be absolutely destroyed and it will get lost if Trump wins for another 4 years. They don't put two and two together that we have a checks and balance system that has allowed to be Trump this bad. One of those check and balance systems is led by Nancy Pelosi, who is over the House, and there's a Democrat majority. They let him be this bad. They fund the military. They fund the DHS and all those troops that he's using for Portland or sending to those Democrat-led cities. Congress, they fund that, and they're letting him run things that way. The benefit of everybody being so scared of Trump and Democrats not doing anything to really try to push back is they're bringing in money. They're bringing in cash from all those people that are scared of Trump. They're getting donations. And they know that their platform is crap, but that platform also appeals to a lot of conservatives, specifically financial conservative people is who it appeals to. And that's bringing in, they keep announcing, oh, Republican support. They're sort of middle to big names. So it's not like they're actually getting Republican voters to switch over. Maybe 5%, but that's nothing. I don't see Joe Biden winning. He does not have a winning strategy. And
so here's Trump without checks and balances is a dangerous human being. Okay, but the one thing that you should not fear about Trump is, he's saying one thing and doing another. No, Trump says exactly what he thinks. You know exactly what he thinks. I mean, the guy speaks his mind regardless of whether or not his communication advisor says otherwise. The dude can't keep his mouth shut. So, no, Trump is Trump is exactly who you think he is when the Oval Office doors are closed. He doesn't become some closed-mouth bureaucrat behind closed doors. He's equally as gangbusters behind closed doors as he is outside of closed doors. Biden is just the opposite. Biden is a career politician. He's a snake, and he has been since and you kind of have to be to stay in politics as long as he has, and walk that tightrope middle ground, which he has done for such a long time. You don't stay in as long as you have without being able to brown nose it all the way up to the top, right? So with Trump, and that's what some people appeal to, is Trump's outspokenness and what you see is what you get mentality. There have been some checks and balances that have stopped Trump from doing some incredibly horrific things, especially when it's come to the Department of Homeland Security issues. I mean, he brought up in a Department of Homeland Security meeting actually opening fire on immigrants coming across the border. And he turned him down, said you can't do that. There's an issue with this, and from a human rights violation standpoint, you can't just open fire on people who come across your border. It's suicide, all this other stuff. And they're right. You shouldn't open fire on people coming across the border illegally. However, there are plenty of places in the world where if you do cross the border illegally, you will get shot in the face. So at the same time, there have been some checks and balances that have come in that have stopped Trump from doing some of the things that he would like to do. But you are correct. At the end of the day, the biggest check and balance is the House of Representatives, which is Democratic controlled. So really, at the end of the day, even if Trump signs an executive order to do something horrible, the House can block that with a vote. And if they are Democratic controlled and Pelosi is in charge of them, as she should be, then there should be no problem. Democrats should be running Washington right now, regardless of who the president of the United States is. He can go nuts and sign as many executive orders as he wants, and the House can just shoot him down one after another. But that's not happening. Every single executive order that Trump has signed, they've let go through. They have not blocked it. And in fact, in the midst of his biggest executive order spree ever, they went on recess. Exactly. They went and hung out and did something else. So, do the Democrats care what Trump is doing? No, they don't.
They love the cash coming in. They love the cash coming into the party.
At the end of the day, is Trump a threat to or national security, I guess we'll start with national security. Is Trump a threat to national security? No. He supports a massive military. If you're worried about national security, Trump is your man. He supports massive military funding and has since he began. And he supports National Guard troops pretty much handling everything. He doesn't trust local police to handle anything. He'll send National Guard in a second. So if you're worried about Trump from a national security perspective, don't be. Is Trump a threat to our interests when it comes to the UN? Yes, he hates the UN, and for good reason, because the United States has paid in so much more than they've ever gotten out from the UN. He hates the UN. So if you're a pro-UN voter, you should be anti-Trump, because Trump wants us out of the UN. And I'm assuming the House probably won't let him. But yeah, the UN has been a big money pit that the U.S. has just poured money in over the times and has gotten nothing out. Will that hurt if he ends up getting his way and pulls us out of the UN? Will that negatively impact our relationship with the countries that are in there? At face value, yes, but at the same time, no, because they all still do business with us and will continue to do business with us. So at the end of the day, no, not really. It will just stop us pouring money into a money pit that we get nothing back out of. And the UN has been mismanaged for years. So is he a threat to our interests overseas? Yeah, depending on how you look at the interests of the UN, right? Is he a threat to our nation now, internally? Well, him personally, no. But him as a facade and as an idea, which is what he's become, yeah. Trump is blamed for almost every issue and altercation that comes across, right? Every racist action is because of Trump. Every this and that is because of Trump. So instead of becoming a person, Trump has become a reason or an idea in this country. And that idea has fueled this division. Period. And there's nothing he's going to be able to do. There's not enough African Americans he can hug. There's not enough anything he can do now to fix that. He will always be looked at as a racist. He will always be looked at as someone who drives white supremacy in this country. He will always be the one that everyone blames every time there's a police shooting of a black man, because that is just the idea of people that they have of him, and there is nothing he's going to do to fix that, no matter what he does. Maybe 1 or 2% will change their mind, but the majority of people will still look at him as a racist bigot against migrants, who's against people of color, and that's just nothing he's going to be able to break. So from that perspective, if he stays in office, that will continue to be the case. That divisiveness in the United States will continue to grow. Biden coming in as president will not change any of the other stuff that we just talked about. Okay, money will still go to the government. Will still go to the military in the same amount that it is now, maybe even more. We will not be pulling out of Iraq anytime soon. The immigration system will not get changed. It will remain the exact same as it is right now, maybe even get worse. The only difference Biden coming in as president will make is no longer will he be blamed whenever there's a police shooting in a local area, and no longer will he be blamed for white supremacy in the country, even though he himself is probably equally as anti-minority and anti-Semitic or whatever else you want to say as Donald Trump. The only difference that Biden will bring in is that scapegoat's not going to be there anymore. You won't be able to say, oh, it's because of the president all this is happening, even though it might be. People aren't going to say that because of the Democratic Party. So that's my shtick. President Trump, at the end of the day, has just built this facade and this idea that people have about him. And for those people who are not going to change their mind, the next 4 years are going to be exactly the same as they are now from that aspect. So
you just had a great breakdown of how things are going to go. And I don't disagree with any of it. That the risk that you broke down about another 4 years of Trump is very accurate. There is probably even a chance that Democrats will take over the Senate and he ends up with a Democrat House and Senate, but it will still be the same because he hasn't faced any real opposition from Pelosi. He hasn't faced any real opposition from Schumer in the Senate. It's going to be the same. It's going to be in the next 4 same years if he wins, and the Democrats are are probably still going to cash in on some money, but people will hopefully realize Democrats are just joking around. And one of the good examples that you mentioned about how they tried to blame Trump, yes, he's horrible, and especially when it comes to the post office and what he wants to do there. But I haven't seen on any news channel them breaking down the problem that the postal office has, which was years ago, there was a law passed that said that the USPS had to fund retirement plans for 75 years in advance. Who does that? Who does that? And every Democrat and Republican passed it. They said, yeah, no problem. I think even Bernie voted for that. That is what put the USPS in the financial position they are in today. Imagine having to fund pensions and retirement.
Nobody talks about mismanagement when it comes up to this stuff, right?
No.
Nobody talks about the policies that led to the post office being in the financial straits that they are today, right?
Yeah.
Whenever you talk about a bailout of a large like AIG or something like that, nobody talks about the mismanagement that took them to that point to begin with, the overextension of funds, right? So everybody just talks about, oh no, Trump wants to defund the post office. No one says this is the reason why they're in the situation they're in now. Is defunding the proper response? Probably not, but there needs to be a restructuring done immediately in order to keep them solvent for the next however long it needs to be. So, but that's not, this is a really another one of those things that they could easily just stamp on Trump's forehead, just kind of, you did this to the post office. This is your fault.
Yeah, and no news channel is going to cover what truly happened and how the USPS got to where they are now. And in my view, they don't even need to be solvent because it's a service that helps people. So can you balance it out so that it doesn't run on deficit? Absolutely. You don't need to be funding pensions for the next 75 years, especially when you don't know what the next 75 years look like when it comes to new employees and all those things. So it doesn't make sense. They've been trying to get rid of the post office for 100 years, if not more, because it benefits the private industry to not have that postal service as a competitor. Last comment, if Biden wins, we will have a worse Donald Trump 4 years from now. Somebody who is far more competent, somebody that is probably a career politician, or somebody who will not speak what they are thinking about like Trump does right now. And that will be scary. Donald Trump, we can manage, especially if we put the pressure on the right people, which is what everybody should be doing, is put pressure on freaking Congress to control him, get the right people in charge there, and start building different coalitions. Give him real opposition, not this Democratic circus of just faking it, and in the background, you pass every legislation that he wants and support him that way.